For 5 years, I poured my heart into gifts that cost me time, money, and love. And what did I get in return? Junk. Literal garbage. Designer bags on her shoulder, 8 luxury cars in the driveway, yet my wealthy sister-in-law thought I deserved puzzles with missing pieces. But this year, I finally found the perfect revenge. A gift so loud, so obnoxious, it drove their entire family insane. And I wasn't even there to watch it happen. If you've ever been disrespected, overlooked, or treated like you don't matter, this story is for you. Stick around, because you're about to hear how one carefully chosen gift became the ultimate payback. And before we dive into the chaos, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe for more jaw-dropping revenge stories, and tell me in the comments, what's the pettiest gift you'd give to someone who never says thank you? The holidays have always been important to me. I grew up believing that gifts were never just about objects. They were symbols. They were small pieces of thoughtfulness, little echoes of love, wrapped up in paper and ribbon. So when I married into a family that treated Christmas, birthdays, and baby showers like a high society fashion show, I thought maybe this is my chance to bring a little warmth into their glittery, cold world. I wanted to belong. I wanted to be seen, and most of all, I wanted to be appreciated. So I tried harder than I should have. Every August, while most people were still sweating in the summer heat, I was already planning holiday gifts. I'd hunt through Anthropologie, Nordstrom, and even little boutique shops tucked into quiet corners of Seattle, searching for treasures. I wasn't the type to grab a random candle set on sale or some gift card stuffed in a half-bent envelope. No, I was intentional. Each present was curated, thoughtful, tied to a theme. That year, for example, I chose travel as my theme. Luxury cosmetic kits designed for carry-ons, cozy knitted scarves perfect for airports, and golf gear for the men who prided themselves on weekends at the country club. And what did I hope for in return? Not money, not even gifts, just a simple acknowledgement. A thank you, a handwritten note, a warm smile, something to say, I see what you did for me. It mattered. But for 5 years, 5 long years, that acknowledgement never came. The first time it happened was at my sister-in-law's baby shower. I still remember the excitement bubbling inside me when I wrapped her gift. A handcrafted wooden toy set, delicate and timeless, paired with a Nordstrom baby blanket, so soft it practically melted in your hands. I imagined her tearing off the wrapping paper, gasping, maybe hugging me. Instead, she barely glanced at it before tossing it onto the pile and moving on. And then the silence. No card, no call, not even a lazy thanks text with a smiley emoji. I brushed it off at first. Maybe she was busy. Maybe she forgot. But as the months turned into years, a pattern emerged. Every Christmas, every birthday, every special event, I gave from the heart, and she gave nothing. No thanks, no acknowledgement, just silence, as though my efforts had evaporated into thin air. What made it worse was the contrast. She and my brother-in-law had money, real money, a paralegal career cushioned by a fat trust fund, plus a mortgage magically covered by military disability benefits he bragged about scamming. Their house sat in prime Seattle real estate, their driveway lined with cars that screamed excess. A Tesla, a Porsche, a Land Rover, and half a dozen others they rotated through just for fun. Every holiday gathering, she'd sashay in with a new designer bag, Louis Vuitton, Dior, YSL, dangling from her arm like a trophy. Meanwhile, what did they give us? Garbage. And I don't mean that metaphorically. I mean literal, bottom-of-the-barrel, Goodwill garbage. One year it was a puzzle with missing pieces, another a chipped snow globe that looked like it had spent a decade gathering dust in someone's attic, Disney knickknacks that looked like rejects from a garage sale, junk, always junk. And the cherry on top, they'd hand it over with this smug little smirk, as if we should be grateful they even bothered. At first I tried to rationalize it. Maybe they didn't know what to give. Maybe they thought, Secondhand had charm. Maybe. But the truth was unavoidable. They didn't care. The most insulting part, they knew exactly how much I cared. I wasn't shy about it. I even gifted my sister-in-law a set of thank you cards with stamps. Subtle, right? My way of hinting, of nudging her toward basic decency. She never used them. They probably ended up in the trash. Year after year, I felt the sting of their disregard. It wasn't just about gifts. It was about respect. About the imbalance between giving and taking. About the way they flaunted their wealth while handing us scraps. Never once lowering themselves to say, "We appreciate you." And here's the thing. I didn't just give for her. I gave for their child too, my nephew. A sweet boy who lit up every time I brought him a new Lego set, or a handcrafted toy, or something special from FAO Schwartz. He deserved better than to grow up in a house where gratitude was absent. And still, no thanks. Not from her, not from him, not from anyone. 5 years of this pattern wears you down. You start questioning yourself. Am I overreacting? Should I stop caring? But every time I thought about giving less, my heart wouldn't let me. I believed in generosity. I believed in doing the right thing. But belief has limits, and patience has an expiration date. One Christmas, after receiving yet another pile of junk, I sat in my living room staring at the chipped, dust-covered trinket in my hands. My stomach churned. My heart thudded. And for the first time, instead of brushing it off, I felt something new rising inside me. Not sadness, not disappointment, anger. It was quiet at first, a whisper in the back of my mind. But as the years of disrespect piled up in my memory, the silent baby shower, the ignored thank you cards, the endless Goodwill trash, the whisper grew louder. Why do I keep letting her get away with this? Why do I keep giving when she keeps taking? That night, lying awake in the dark, staring at the ceiling, I knew something inside me had shifted. This wasn't just about bad gifts anymore. This was about principle, about dignity, about standing up for myself in a way she could never ignore. The seed of revenge was planted. And I knew, sooner or later, it was going to grow. If chapter 1 of this saga was about my slow awakening, the realization that 5 years of silence, junk, and disrespect had finally pushed me to my limit, then chapter 2 was where the mask truly slipped, where my sister-in-law and her husband stopped just being thoughtless and revealed themselves as something much darker, arrogant, entitled, and proudly ungrateful. You see, wealth does funny things to people. Some people grow more generous when they have more than enough. They see abundance as an invitation to share. But others, like my sister-in-law, treat wealth as a stage. Every designer purse she carried, every car parked in their pristine driveway, was less about comfort and more about performance. She wanted the world to see her, to envy her, to know she was better. And she played that part well. Every holiday gathering, she'd make her entrance like a movie star stepping onto a red carpet, her hair perfectly styled, her lips painted in shades that screamed expensive. She'd glide into the room with her husband at her side, him wearing that smug, self-satisfied grin he'd perfected over the years. And then the stories would begin. Oh, we just got back from Cabo. The villa was exquisite. Private pool, ocean view, nothing like those budget hotels some people stay in. Or, my new YSL bag? Oh, this one's just a casual piece. You know, something light for errands. She'd toss these lines out like bait, waiting for someone to bite, to ask more, to give her the admiration she craved. And most people did. They cooed and clapped, impressed by the shiny trappings, but me, I saw the hollowness underneath. Because for all their wealth, all their show, they had no class. None. And nowhere was that clearer than in the way they gave gifts. Take one Christmas, for example. I had spent weeks preparing that year's theme, coziness. Luxurious knit throws, high-end candles, gourmet cocoa sets. When it came time to exchange gifts, I handed over my carefully wrapped packages with a smile, imagining, maybe foolishly, that this would finally be the year she softened. In return, we unwrapped a used jigsaw puzzle. The pieces weren't even all there. I remember holding the flimsy box in my hands, shaking it slightly, hearing the rattle of the incomplete set inside. My husband and I exchanged a look across the room, his face tight, mine carefully neutral. I felt the sting crawl up my neck, heat flooding my cheeks, not because of the puzzle itself, but because of what it symbolized. You're not worth the effort. And the worst part? They knew exactly what they were doing. Later that night, after the dinner plates had been cleared, I overheard them laughing in the kitchen. My brother-in-law's voice carried, smug and careless. "Can you believe she actually buys us that Nordstrom crap? Must be nice wasting all that cash on other people. We just grab something from Goodwill and call it a day." And then my sister-in-law, her laugh sharp as glass. "She doesn't get it. Some people just don't know their place." That was the moment I realized this wasn't just thoughtlessness. This was malice. A performance of superiority. And it didn't stop there. They bragged openly about money they hadn't earned. My brother-in-law would sit back in his chair smirking while recounting how he finessed his military disability benefits to cover their mortgage. "It's just smart living," he'd say, as though scamming the system was something to be proud of. Meanwhile, my sister-in-law would nod along, tossing her hair back, her designer earrings catching the light. They wore arrogance like armor. Gratitude was beneath them. Humility was for the poor. I tried for years to give them the benefit of the doubt, to remind myself that not everyone is raised with the same values. But the cracks in my patience widened with every sneer, every backhanded comment, every trash gift passed off as thoughtful. And the cherry on top, they never missed a chance to belittle others who didn't fit into their glossy world. Relatives who couldn't afford luxury cars were embarrassing. Cousins who worked honest jobs were settling. Anyone who didn't match their curated image of success was disposable. I remember one Thanksgiving sitting at the table while she boasted about her latest Louis Vuitton purchase, turning her nose up at a cousin's modest handbag. "Oh, honey," she cooed, fake sympathy dripping from her voice. "You really should upgrade. People notice." That was my sister-in-law in a nutshell. People weren't people. They were props, background characters in the play of her life. And if you didn't serve her narrative, you weren't worth remembering. And yet, I kept giving. Why? Because I didn't want to stoop to her level. I wanted to believe kindness could win, that my gifts, my thoughtfulness, my patience would eventually break through her icy exterior, that maybe one day she'd hand me a card, look me in the eye, and say, "Thank you." But deep down, a question began to fester. What if she never did? What if she took and took and took until there was nothing left of me but bitterness? It was a dangerous thought, one I tried to shove aside, but the truth was becoming impossible to ignore. Every slight, every sneer, every junk gift piled higher and higher until the weight of it all pressed down on me. And in that pressure, something began to form. Not just anger this time, resolve. If she was going to rise higher and higher on her pedestal of arrogance, then maybe it was time someone pulled her back down. But how? I didn't know it yet, but the answer would come to me in the unlikeliest of places. If the first few years had been silent slaps to the face, then by year 3, 4, and 5, the slaps had turned into something sharper. The disrespect wasn't just implied anymore. It was loud, clear, and deliberate. It became a game to them. I could see it in the way my sister-in-law smirked whenever I handed her a carefully wrapped box, the way her eyes flicked over the neat bow, the quality of the paper, the weight of the package, just long enough to let me know she noticed the effort, and then, without fail, she'd cast it aside like it was meaningless. And what she gave in return? It grew worse every year. One Christmas, she handed us a box that rattled suspiciously. I pulled back the wrapping paper and opened the flaps to find a broken snow globe. Inside, the water had long since evaporated, leaving a cracked plastic figurine floating around like some sad little relic. My husband glanced at it, then at me, his eyebrows raised. I forced a polite smile, but inside, I burned. Another year, it was a stuffed animal from a Disney store. Its fur matted, the tag half torn off. It smelled faintly of dust, like it had been buried in a box for a decade. And then there was the time she gave us a DVD. Yes, an actual DVD. Some random animated movie nobody had heard of. The case scratched, the disc inside rattling loose. We didn't even own a DVD player anymore. It was laughable if it hadn't been so cruel. Because here's the thing, they had money. They could afford better. They weren't scraping by, doing their best. They had Teslas parked in the driveway. They were jetting off to Cabo for vacations. And she was parading around with handbags worth thousands. And still, they chose to hand me junk. Not by accident. Not because they didn't know better, but because, to them, I wasn't worth more than a handful of scraps. The contrast was unbearable. And it wasn't just the gifts. The comments grew bolder, too. At one Christmas dinner, after I'd just set a platter of homemade truffles on the table, hand-rolled, dusted in cocoa, each one carefully wrapped, my brother-in-law leaned back in his chair, smirking. "Wow," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You really waste a lot of time on this stuff, huh? I mean, we just pick something up at Goodwill and call it a day." The table erupted in laughter. My sister-in-law threw her head back, her designer earrings sparkling in the chandelier light. "It's true," she added, her voice syrupy with sarcasm. "You put so much effort into gifts. I could never. I have better things to do with my time." I smiled tightly, biting back the flood of words threatening to spill out. My hands trembled under the table as I folded my napkin into smaller and smaller squares, my jaw aching from holding back. Better things to do. As though kindness was a waste, as though thoughtfulness was a flaw. And still, I said nothing. But the silence grew heavy. Not just mine, everyone else's too. I could see the discomfort on other relatives' faces. The way my mother-in-law shifted uncomfortably. The way cousins exchanged glances, trying to decide if they should laugh along or stay quiet. But no one defended me. No one told them to stop. And that silence, that complicity, cut deeper than their insults. It made me feel alone. Every year, I'd go home with my husband, lugging their junk gifts and my bruised pride. I'd tell myself to shake it off. "We don't do it for them," I'd whisper. "We do it because it's who we are." But the words grew hollow with repetition. And then came the baby shower years. For their child, I gave everything. I wanted my nephew to feel love, to grow up surrounded by joy, to have better than his parents' cold arrogance. I splurged on Lego sets, handcrafted toys, even once bought him a limited edition FAO Schwartz train set that cost more than I cared to admit. And what did I get in return? Nothing. Not a thank you note, not a text, not even acknowledgement. It became a sick kind of joke between my husband and me. I'd hand over a beautifully wrapped gift and we'd wait, like gamblers watching the roulette wheel spin, hoping for even the smallest sign of gratitude. But the wheel always landed on silence. 5 years of this, 5 years of giving and never receiving, not just gifts, but respect. It changed something in me. I started to dread the holidays. The season that once filled me with excitement now loomed like a storm cloud. My chest tightened every time I thought about seeing them again, about the smirks, the laughter, the junk, and the anger, the quiet, simmering anger began to build. It wasn't explosive, not yet. It was slow, like water boiling, bubble by bubble, heat rising, until one day I knew it would spill over. And then it happened. One night, after another Christmas where we'd received yet another pile of junk, I sat in bed staring at the ceiling, my husband asleep beside me. I thought about the years of silence, about the laughter at my expense, about the broken snow globe sitting in a bag downstairs, waiting to be tossed into the trash. And something inside me snapped. I whispered into the dark, my voice steady, certain. They think they're winning, but they don't know me. They don't know what I'm capable of. For the first time, the thought didn't scare me. It thrilled me. The anger had reached its boiling point, and now revenge wasn't just a possibility. It was inevitable. For 5 long years, I told myself to stay calm, to take the high road, to keep giving from the heart, no matter what I got in return. But every road, no matter how noble, eventually ends. And mine ended the night I stared at that chipped snow globe on my kitchen counter. It sat there like a mocking reminder of everything I had endured. The missing pieces, the junk, the silence. 5 years of effort. Ignored. 5 years of generosity, discarded. And all the while, my sister-in-law paraded her designer handbags, her luxury cars, her perfect little Instagram-ready life as though I were invisible. That night, I didn't just feel angry. I felt humiliated because I had let it happen. Every ignored thank you, every broken trinket, every smirk and dismissive laugh, I had swallowed it all, smiled through it, pretended it didn't matter. But it did. It mattered more than I wanted to admit. I sat at the table with my head in my hands, replaying it all. The baby shower, the endless holidays, the laughter in the kitchen when they mocked me for buying Nordstrom crap. My stomach turned with every memory, the anger rising higher, sharper, hotter. And for the first time in years, I stopped making excuses for her. She wasn't forgetful. She wasn't clueless. She was cruel. It wasn't about the gifts. It never was. It was about control, about power, about reminding me year after year that I didn't matter, that no matter how much thought or money I poured into my gifts, I would always be beneath her. That realization hit me like ice water. And then, like a spark catching dry tinder, something else followed. Resolve. I wasn't going to take it anymore. No more Nordstrom purses. No more Anthropology calendars. No more luxury skincare kits or handcrafted toys. If she wanted to play this game, then fine. But I was going to play it better. Revenge doesn't always come in grand, cinematic gestures. Sometimes it begins in small, quiet moments. A seed planted in the dark, a whisper in the back of your mind. They think they're untouchable. Let's prove them wrong. For me, the seed was planted that night at the kitchen table, and once it was there, I couldn't stop watering it. I began to notice things I'd ignored before. The way her parents, my in-laws, fawned over her as if her every word were gospel. The way she strutted through family gatherings, barking orders, never once lifting a finger to help with dishes or clean up. The way her son, my nephew, mimicked her entitled tone, rolling his eyes when someone told him no. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about the fact that she was raising her child to be just like her. And that lit a fire in me I couldn't put out. One day, while driving home from yet another family event, my husband glanced at me. "You okay?" he asked gently. I stared out the window, my jaw clenched. "No," I said finally. "I'm done. I'm so tired of this." He nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Then stop. You don't owe them anything." I turned to him, my voice low, steady. "No, I don't, but I owe myself something." "What do you mean?" I smiled, though it wasn't the kind of smile he was used to seeing from me. It wasn't soft. It was sharp, determined. "I mean, it's time she finally learns what gratitude feels like. The hard way." He didn't push. He didn't have to, because for the first time in years, I felt free. Free from the weight of politeness. Free from the chains of obligation. Free to fight back. And the more I thought about it, the clearer it became. Her weakness wasn't handbags or vacations or luxury cars. Those things fed her ego, sure, but they weren't the key. No, her true weakness was her son, the one person in her life who mattered more than handbags, more than vacations, more than money. Her spoiled, beloved, precious little boy. And if I wanted to get under her skin, to finally make her feel even a fraction of the frustration she had caused me, I knew exactly where to start. With him, not by hurting him, of course not. I loved that kid. I wanted him to be happy. But sometimes, the happiest gifts for children are the most unbearable for their parents. And that, I realized, was the opening I'd been waiting for. My hands tingled with anticipation as the thought formed in my mind. What if I stopped trying to please her and started pleasing him instead? What if, instead of quiet, tasteful gifts, I gave him something loud, obnoxious,
unstoppable, something that would make him ecstatic and drive her absolutely insane. The idea bloomed like wildfire, spreading through me until I couldn't contain the grin tugging at my lips. For the first time in 5 years, I wasn't dreading the next holiday. I was looking forward to it because now the game had changed. She thought she was the queen of petty, the master of control, but she was about to find out that I could be pettier, louder, and smarter than she ever imagined. And it all started with one delicious thought. What's the most annoying, impossible to ignore gift I can find?
Revenge doesn't just fall out of the sky. It creeps in slowly, weaving itself into your thoughts, tightening its grip until it's the only thing you can focus on. After that night when I finally admitted I was done playing nice, the thought consumed me. How do I make her feel what I've felt? But unlike her, I wasn't careless. I wasn't going to lash out in some messy explosion that left me looking bitter or resentful. No, this had to be elegant, clever, a move so subtle it would appear harmless on the surface, but underneath it would hit like a dagger. And that's when my mind kept circling back to her son, her precious golden child, the one who could do no wrong, the one she paraded around as the crown jewel of her perfect little life. I adored that boy. I still do. None of this was his fault. He was just a kid, caught in the crossfire of his parents' arrogance. But that's what made him the perfect key. Because the best revenge isn't about hurting the innocent. It's about using the innocent to expose the guilty. And what better way to expose her than through the very thing she prized the most? So the question became, what gift could I give him that he would love, obsess over, and never put down, while simultaneously driving her absolutely insane? I didn't want it to be dangerous. I didn't want it to be harmful. I wanted it to be irritating, something loud, obnoxious, inescapable, the kind of toy that would worm its way into her daily life until she couldn't take it anymore. And the beauty of it was, it would look like pure generosity on my part. To everyone else, I'd be the thoughtful aunt giving her nephew something fun and exciting. But behind the wrapping paper, it would be my secret weapon. I started making lists in my head. Drums? Too obvious. She'd banish them to the garage within a day. Electronic keyboards? Possible, but she might just accidentally unplug it and call it a day. Remote control cars? Too tame. No, it had to be something simple but irresistible. Something portable that he could carry everywhere. Something she couldn't escape no matter what room she tried to hide in. I spent weeks obsessing over the idea. Every time I walked past a toy aisle, my eyes scanned for possibilities. Every outdoor market, every boutique store, every catalog that showed up in the mail, I flipped through with one goal in mind. And then I found it. It wasn't in a shiny store. It wasn't in some glossy catalog. It was at a small outdoor market one sticky summer afternoon when I least expected it. I was weaving through rows of stalls when I heard it, a sharp pop followed by laughter. I turned my head and saw a little boy grinning ear to ear, clutching what looked like a plastic toy gun with a small cork on the end. He pulled the trigger again, and pop! The sound echoed across the market. Heads turned. Parents groaned. The boy giggled uncontrollably, and I froze. There it was, my holy grail, the pop gun. It was beautiful in its simplicity, lightweight, easy to use, cheap enough to look innocent, fun enough to become an obsession. But the sound was perfect. Loud enough to be unbearable indoors, sharp enough to cut through conversations, and addictive enough that no child could ever resist pulling the trigger again and again and again. I stood there staring at that stall like I'd just stumbled onto buried treasure. My heart pounded with excitement, my lips curling into a grin I couldn't hold back. This was it. This was the weapon I'd been searching for. I walked up to the stall, testing one in my hands. The vendor smiled. Kids love those. Parents, not so much. I nearly laughed out loud. Oh, if only he knew. I bought one on the spot, tucking it carefully into my bag like it was a diamond necklace. But as I walked away, a thought struck me. One wouldn't be enough. Not for the full effect. I needed more.
a backup, a way to guarantee the obsession would last. So I went back and bought a second one. When I got home, I tested it out myself. Pop, pop, pop. The noise echoed through the house, and my husband came into the room with a look of pure horror. "What is that?" he asked, covering his ears. I couldn't stop smiling. "It's the sound of justice," I said simply. He groaned. "You're going to be their worst nightmare." "Exactly," I replied. That night, I wrapped the pop guns in glossy paper, tying them with ribbons that made them look deceptively sweet. To anyone else, they were just toys. But to me, they were the culmination of 5 years of pent-up anger, frustration, and humiliation, condensed into plastic and noise. I placed them on the shelf, ready for the holidays, and as I stood back, looking at those perfectly wrapped boxes, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: excitement. Because this time, I wasn't giving from the heart. I was giving from the soul of someone who'd been pushed too far for too long, and I couldn't wait to see the fallout.
The hardest part of revenge isn't coming up with the idea. It isn't even finding the weapon. No, the hardest part is waiting. Sitting on your plan like a secret you can't tell anyone. Waiting for the right moment to let it loose. That's where I found myself after buying those pop guns. They sat in my closet for weeks, neatly wrapped in glossy paper with ribbons curled just right. Every time I opened the closet door, I caught a glimpse of them sitting there, innocent little bombs just waiting to detonate. And oh, how tempting it was to peek inside, to squeeze the trigger just one more time, hear that sharp pop echo through the house, and imagine my sister-in-law's face twisting in frustration as her perfect little life was invaded by chaos. But I resisted because timing mattered. Revenge, like a good recipe, depends on patience. As the holidays crept closer, I felt the tension in my chest transform. Normally, I dreaded this time of year, knowing it meant another round of junk gifts, smirks, and silence. But this time, I was counting down the days. Every morning, I'd cross another date off the calendar with a grin, like a prisoner scratching marks on the wall. But not counting down to freedom, counting down to war. And yet, beneath the excitement, a sliver of doubt lingered. What if it didn't work? What if he didn't like it? What if, after all my plotting, the pop gun ended up forgotten in a pile of Legos and plush toys, and my grand plan fizzled into nothing? That fear gnawed at me in quiet moments. I'd be washing dishes or folding laundry, and suddenly the thought would stab me. What if she wins again? But every time I reminded myself, kids love noise. Kids love chaos. And this toy was irresistible. If I couldn't count on her to give me satisfaction, I could count on him. And that's when I realized something. This wasn't just a gift anymore. It was an accomplice. My nephew was about to become my unwitting partner in revenge. I almost laughed out loud at the thought. For years, I'd been fighting this battle alone. But now, I had backup. The holiday arrived faster than I expected. Suitcases packed, gifts loaded, family schedules arranged. But at the last minute, my husband and I made a choice. A quiet rebellion of our own. We weren't going to Seattle this year. We told the family we had other commitments, that the trip was too much, and to my surprise, it felt liberating. No fake smiles across the dinner table, no forcing myself to swallow their smug remarks, no enduring their performance of wealth and superiority. Instead, we sent our gifts ahead with Grandma. The pop guns nestled among other neatly wrapped packages, looking harmless, even sweet. As I watched the delivery truck pull away with the box, my stomach fluttered with anticipation. It was like sending a secret agent into enemy territory. My heart raced, my palms sweaty, my smile wide. This was it, the moment I'd been waiting for. The trap was set. All that remained was the fallout. That evening, I poured myself a glass of wine and curled up on the couch, my phone within reach. I wasn't there to see it with my own eyes, but I knew the reports would come. Grandma never missed a detail, and as I sat there, sipping slowly, I imagined it all. My nephew ripping open the paper, his face lighting up with joy. The first squeeze of the trigger, that glorious bop ringing through the house. The giggle that followed, the second pop, and the third, and the fourth, and the endless stream of chaos he would unleash. I imagined my sister-in-law's face twisting in irritation, her parents covering their ears, my brother-in-law groaning as the sound echoed through the walls, and my nephew, oblivious to it all, refusing to let the toy out of his hands. The perfect storm. And the best part? To everyone else, I was still the thoughtful aunt who gave him a fun gift. No one could accuse me of malice. No one could say I'd done anything wrong. It was flawless. As the night stretched on, I kept checking my phone, waiting for the first message. The silence was almost unbearable, my mind spinning with possibilities. Had it worked? Was it happening? Then, at last, the phone buzzed. It was Grandma, and the message she sent made me laugh so hard I nearly spilled my wine. The message from Grandma was short, simple, but it was everything I needed to hear. Her words lit up my phone screen. "That toy you sent? It's already an issue." I laughed out loud, the sound startling even myself. It wasn't just laughter, it was release. 5 years of pent-up frustration spilling out in one long, joyous cackle. My husband looked over from the other side of the couch, raising an eyebrow. "What'd she say?" I handed him the phone, still grinning ear to ear. He read the text, then let out a low whistle. "Wow, that was fast. Faster than I even hoped," I said, leaning back against the cushions, the weight of all those years suddenly feeling lighter. Because in just a few words, I could picture it. My nephew tearing into the wrapping paper with the uncontainable energy only kids have. The shiny toy in his hands, his little fingers wrapping around the handle, tugging at the trigger. Pop, the sound ricocheting through the room, sharp and loud. Then again, pop, 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 the laughter spilling out of him, pure, unfiltered joy. And in the background, my sister-in-law's smile cracking, my brother-in-law's smugness dissolving, her parents' faces contorting in irritation as the sound refused to stop. I nearly fell off the couch laughing. "Are you serious?" "I'm serious," she replied. "He loves it. It's the only toy he cares about. Forget the other gifts. He's obsessed with this one. He carries it everywhere, popping it non-stop. Your sister-in-law looks ready to lose her mind." I pressed a hand to my mouth, trying to stifle my laughter, but it was no use. It bubbled out uncontrollably, tears welling in my eyes. Mission accomplished. For years, I had been the quiet giver, the patient one, the fool who kept hoping for gratitude. But now I was the one holding the strings, and the beauty of it was, I hadn't done anything wrong. It was just a toy, a simple, harmless toy. But in the right hands and the right house, it became my perfect act of revenge. And the best part? My nephew adored me for it. He didn't know he was part of a bigger game. To him, I was just the fun aunt who gave him the coolest present of the year. And I knew, deep down, that no matter how much his mother fumed, she couldn't take that toy away, not without being the bad guy. Because if there's one thing kids know how to do, it's hold on to their favorite toy with a death grip. I pictured her trying. "Sweetie, why don't you play with your Legos instead? Pop, how about this puzzle? Pop, pop, let's watch a movie. Pop, pop, pop." The sound was relentless, unstoppable. It was the soundtrack of my revenge. My phone buzzed again later with another message from Grandma. "He's still at it. It's all he wants to do." She tried hiding it. He cried until she gave it back. Now he's popping it in the kitchen, the living room, the car, everywhere. I curled up on the couch, my cheeks aching from smiling so hard. This was better than I'd imagined, because it wasn't just about the noise. It was about control. For once, she wasn't in control. Her perfect little curated holiday, the one where she strutted around with her designer bag while her parents praised her, had been hijacked by a cheap plastic toy. A toy I had chosen.
and she couldn't stop it. I felt something shift inside me as I thought about it. For years, she had made me feel small, like my efforts, my gifts, my thoughtfulness were meaningless. But now she was the one being drowned out, overpowered, outmaneuvered, and the sweetest part, she couldn't even complain about it without sounding ridiculous. What was she going to say? That gift was too thoughtful? That toy made my son too happy? No. She was trapped, just like I had been for years, and I wasn't done yet. Because as I listened to Grandma's updates, an idea sparked. If one little toy could wreak this much havoc, what else could I do? The possibilities stretched out before me, tempting, thrilling. For the first time in years, I wasn't dreading the next holiday. I was already planning it. There's a certain satisfaction in knowing your plan worked better than you imagined. But there's a deeper, darker satisfaction in realizing that it's still unfolding, layer by layer, day by day, as the effects spread like ripples in a pond. That's what the pop gun became. Not just a toy, not just a joke, but a ticking time bomb, detonating in bursts of pop, pop, pop throughout the perfect little household. Grandma's reports became my favorite part of the holiday season. Every evening, like clockwork, she'd call or text with updates, and each one was more glorious than the last. Day 1, he won't put it down. She looks exhausted already. Day 2, they tried to take it away for dinner. He screamed until they gave it back, popped it between bites. Day 3, she hid it in the closet. He found it, then popping it ever since. Each update was like music to my ears, but the symphony truly reached its crescendo on Christmas Day, when the whole extended family gathered at their house. Picture it. A room full of relatives, conversations buzzing, food being passed around, laughter bubbling here and there. My sister-in-law, dressed to the nines as always, making her grand entrance with her designer bag perched proudly on her arm. My brother-in-law holding court, bragging about his latest smart financial move. The stage was set, their performance underway. And then, pop! The sound cut through the chatter like a gunshot. Heads turned, conversations faltered, and there he was, my nephew, beaming, his little hands wrapped around the toy I had given him. "Watch this!" he shouted, pulling the trigger again. Pop, pop, pop. The noise echoed off the walls, bouncing through the pristine, perfectly decorated living room. Relatives chuckled nervously at first, glancing at one another, but my nephew wasn't about to let up. He strutted through the room like a soldier on parade, firing off shots in every direction. My sister-in-law's smile twitched. She tried to keep it together, smoothing her hair, adjusting her dress, pretending it didn't bother her. "Okay, sweetie, that's enough for now," she cooed, reaching for the toy. But my nephew clutched it tighter, eyes narrowing. "No! It's mine!" Pop! The sound rang out again, and his face lit up with glee. Laughter broke out among some of the relatives. "That's quite the toy," one uncle said with a grin. "Where'd you get it?" My sister-in-law's cheeks flushed pink. "Oh, just one of the gifts," she muttered, her voice tight. Meanwhile, my nephew was relentless. He popped it in the dining room. He popped it in the hallway. He popped it while sitting cross-legged under the Christmas tree. And every single pop landed like a punch to my sister-in-law's pride. Because this was her stage, her moment, her carefully curated holiday scene where she reigned as queen. And now, she couldn't speak without being interrupted. She couldn't boast without being drowned out. She couldn't even pretend to be in control because her son had found his new obsession. And nothing, not even her, could pry it from his hands. The best part? Her parents couldn't stand it either. Grandma told me they lasted 15 minutes before throwing up their hands in surrender. "I can't take this racket," her father barked, storming out of the room. Her mother pinched the bridge of her nose, muttering, "Why on earth would anyone buy that thing?" before retreating to the kitchen. And there she was,
My sister-in-law, stuck in the middle of it all, her precious little world unraveling, her control slipping, her relatives fleeing the noise, while her son reveled in the joy of the loudest, most obnoxious toy he'd ever owned. I wasn't there to see it in person, but I didn't need to be. Grandma painted the picture so vividly that I could practically see it in my mind. The frustration on her face, the chaos swirling around her, the sound of pop, pop, pop echoing endlessly in her head. And the sweetest part, she couldn't say a word. Because if she did, if she complained about the gift, I knew exactly what would happen. The family would turn on her. They'd say she was ungrateful. They'd tell her to let her son enjoy himself. They'd accuse her of being petty, shallow, selfish. So she was trapped, just like I had been for 5 years. The beauty of revenge is not always in the grand gesture, but in the elegance of the trap. Mine was perfect, simple, harmless on the surface, devastating underneath. And as I sat miles away sipping hot cocoa by my own Christmas tree, I realized something. For the first time in years, I wasn't the one dreading the holidays. She was. Revenge doesn't always explode in one big moment. Sometimes it lingers, dripping slowly into every corner of someone's life until they can't escape it. And that's exactly what my little gift became for my sister-in-law. The fallout wasn't just a single holiday of chaos. It stretched on, weaving itself into her daily routine. Grandma told me the stories in hushed, amused tones over the phone, like she couldn't quite believe what was happening herself. "Sweetheart," she whispered one evening, "he takes that toy everywhere. I mean everywhere. The grocery store, the car, even church. She tried to stop him, but he throws a fit if she so much as looks at it. It's the only thing he cares about. None of the other toys matter anymore." I nearly doubled over laughing, the image too perfect to bear. My sister-in-law, queen of appearances, forced to drag her son into public while he fired off pop, pop, pop like a miniature marching band. And the best part? Everyone noticed. Relatives began murmuring behind her back. At the next family gathering, cousins chuckled as the sound echoed through the house. "Man, that's one loud toy. Who gave him that?" I waited, savoring the pause, imagining her jaw tightening, her smile plastered on like cheap wallpaper. "Oh," she'd mutter, waving a hand, "just something from his aunt." And every time she said it, I knew she was choking on the words, because she couldn't complain without revealing the truth. She couldn't roll her eyes without admitting that I'd won. It was glorious. But the fallout went deeper than embarrassment. Her parents, once so enamored with her perfection, began showing cracks in their devotion. "Why don't you just take it away?" they demanded one night, according to Grandma. Her voice had gone shrill. "I can't. He cries until I give it back. Do you want to deal with that?" Silence followed, because the truth was undeniable. She wasn't in control. For the first time, her power slipped, and people noticed. I imagined her pacing through her $1,000,000 home, designer heels clicking against hardwood floors, the sharp pop of the toy following her down every hallway. I imagined her curling up on her expensive leather sofa, trying to sip her overpriced wine, only to flinch at the sound again and again. And my nephew? He was in heaven. To him, it was just joy, pure and simple. A toy that gave him the power to make noise, to demand attention, to dominate every room. He loved me for it, though he didn't know why. Every pop was like a little cheer just for me echoing across the miles. But for her, every pop was a reminder that she wasn't untouchable, a reminder that all her wealth, all her cars, all her handbags couldn't protect her from something as simple as plastic and cork. And the ripple effect was intoxicating. When I spoke to other relatives later, the whispers had grown louder. "She looks so frazzled this year," one cousin confided, "like she couldn't keep up appearances. What happened?" I just smiled, sipping my coffee, never admitting a thing, because that was the beauty of it.
She couldn't pin this on me. To everyone else, I was still the thoughtful aunt, the generous one. To her, I was the quiet saboteur. But she couldn't expose me without exposing herself, her pettiness, her ingratitude, her complete lack of grace. She was trapped in her own silence, just as I had been. And that, more than anything, was the sweetest part of all. For 5 years, I had been invisible, my gifts ignored, my efforts dismissed, my kindness mocked. But now, every day she heard that pop, she was reminded of me. I wasn't invisible anymore. I was unforgettable. And as I sat at home, far from her carefully curated world, I realized something powerful. Revenge doesn't have to destroy someone. Sometimes it just has to inconvenience them enough to remind them they're not invincible. And she would never forget, because that toy wasn't just noise, it was justice.
Revenge is funny. People expect it to look like fireworks. Loud, explosive, devastating. But the truth? The sweetest revenge is often quiet, subtle, a ripple that looks harmless on the surface, but shifts everything underneath. That's what the pop gun was. Not just a toy, not just plastic and noise, but a reminder. For me, it was proof that I wasn't powerless. For 5 years, I had endured their silence, their smugness, their broken trinkets. For 5 years, I had poured my heart into gifts that went unacknowledged, into kindness that went unnoticed. And all the while, my sister-in-law sat on her throne, her wealth and arrogance insulating her from consequence. But not anymore. With one simple gift, the balance shifted. I think back to all those holidays, all those times I walked away with my dignity bruised, asking myself why I kept giving. And now I realize it wasn't wasted, because every slight, every insult, every broken puzzle piece led me to this, to the moment I stopped playing by her rules and wrote my own. And the beauty, I never had to stoop to her level. I didn't scream, I didn't fight, I didn't hurl insults or burn bridges. I didn't even need to raise my voice. All I did was wrap a gift. And now, every time she hears that pop echo through her home, she thinks of me. She remembers that she's not untouchable. And she knows, deep down, that I outsmarted her. But the real surprise, the revenge wasn't just for me. It was for my nephew too. Because while she fumed, he thrived. That toy became his favorite. His joy was genuine, unfiltered, contagious. In giving him something he loved, I gave myself justice too. And that perhaps was the greatest irony. My act of revenge wasn't cruel. It wasn't heartless. It was disguised as kindness. Kindness that happened to be very loud. I sometimes wonder if she ever figured it out, if she realized I'd planned it, that I'd chosen the gift not out of love for her, but out of a desire to finally make her feel the weight of her own arrogance. But then again, does it matter? Because the truth is, I don't need her to know. I don't need her to admit defeat. I don't need her to hand me a thank you card after all these years. I already won. The laughter of my nephew, the chaos echoing through her perfect little palace, the whispers of relatives who noticed her frazzled edges, that was enough. More than enough. For the first time in years, I walked into the new year without bitterness clinging to me, without the heaviness of being overlooked, without the gnawing frustration of giving and never receiving. Instead, I felt light, free, powerful, because I had taken back control. And the best part? I didn't have to compromise who I was to do it. I was still the thoughtful one, the giving one, the aunt who wanted to bring joy. I just finally learned that joy could be a weapon too. So now, when people ask me about gift giving, I smile. I tell them my philosophy hasn't changed. If I wouldn't love receiving it myself, I don't give it. But what I don't say, the part I keep tucked away just for me, is that sometimes the gifts I'd love the most aren't the ones wrapped in bows and ribbons. Sometimes the greatest gift is knowing you finally stood up for yourself, that you reminded someone that their wealth doesn't make them untouchable, that you found a way to make them listen, even if it was only through the relentless pop of a child's toy. Revenge doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just pops. And oh, how sweet that sound can be. And that's how a $5 toy did what 5 years of patience couldn't. It gave me the sweetest revenge of all. Sometimes you don't need to shout. You don't need to fight. You just need the right gift at the right time to remind someone they're not untouchable. If you enjoyed this story, hit that like button, share your own revenge tale in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more jaw-dropping stories like this one. Until next time, may your gifts always bring joy or just the right amount of chaos.